In the middle of a list of rapid-fire statements, the Apostle Paul said, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer." While he doesn't elaborate on these points, I do believe they contain some truths that touch the core of what it means to be disciples of Jesus. And they are particularly relevant for us right now. So let's analyze this verse, and I think you will see what I'm talking about. First, Paul said, "Be joyful in hope." Now, some translations say, "rejoicing in hope." And you could also translate this verse, "Be joyful or rejoice because of your hope." Now, the Greek word translated joyful means to be glad, to be well off, to thrive. And the Greek word translated hope deals with confidence, anticipation, and expectation. And you might say these concepts are summed up in our idea of trust. So Paul is saying that we can be glad, be well off, even thrive because of our hope. And this tells us a few things. First, our ability to be glad, to do well, to even thrive is contingent on our hope. So we need to ask ourselves, where does our hope lie or come from? And secondly, to be able to be glad, to do well, to even thrive is not contingent on our circumstances, but our hope, and therefore it is possible to be glad, to be well off, and to even thrive in the midst of trials. Which is why it makes sense that James would say to rejoice when trials come your way. So because of the hope, because of the trust we have in God, in His promises, because of the trust we have that He is with us, guiding us, that He has our best interests at heart, because of our trust that all things will work together for our good, even when what we see makes no sense to us. Because of this level of trust, it is possible to thrive even in the midst of trials. Now, it doesn't mean it will always be easy and that things will always go well or even go our way, which is why we must be patient in affliction. The word translated patient is a word that means to remain behind, to hold out, to stand your ground, to endure calmly. This is why it can be translated as persevere or endure. In other words, instead of trying to flee, to escape, or fight against a hardship, we stay behind, stand our ground, and calmly endure whatever it is that has come our way, or what Paul calls affliction or tribulation. This Greek word is a word that means a pressing together or pressure. It's what we feel when trials happen. We feel this pressure, and our first inclination is to try and escape the pressure. However, Paul says we need to willingly and calmly endure the pressure. But why? Well, it's because the things we go through as we endure the trials, the pressure, produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. In other words, the pressure molds and shapes and forms us. You see, we can use these hardships to our advantage. But how do we do all this? While Paul doesn't elaborate on this, I think an additional clue is found in the next phrase when he said to be devoted to prayer. Now, let's think about what he has said so far. We can thrive because of our hope, because of our trust in God, which means we can also thrive in the midst of trials. And we thrive in the midst of trials by calmly enduring them. And I think what makes this possible is by being devoted to prayer. The Greek word translated devoted means to busy yourself with, to attend constantly. It is similar to what Paul wrote in 1 Thessalonians 5:17 when he said, "Pray without ceasing," or without interruption. Out of all the things we could be doing, Paul says we should be busying ourselves with prayer. So then we are supposed to spend all of our time making requests, asking God to do things for us? I mean, isn't this what prayer is? Well, It can be a part of prayer, but it's a limited view of prayer. It is a way to pray that helps to build trust and dependence on God, but it is not the whole of what prayer is. It might be helpful to see prayer as a constant awareness of God's presence, which actually makes sense because when we are constantly aware of someone's presence, we have opportunities to talk, to listen, or to just simply be still and rest in their presence. And since it should be the case that our hope or our trust is in God regardless of the circumstances or situations we find ourselves, a constant awareness of God's presence is what allows us to thrive in any situation. So then, our ability to thrive and calmly endure the pressures of life is contingent upon the degree to which we are attentive to the presence of God in our lives. So may you thrive in hope and calmly endure the pressures of life through a clear awareness of the presence of the divine.